Yeah,
Absolutely.
I'm the older one. Yeah, Wisp. She's 11, so yeah, she's just behind me. You can't see her.
Yes.
But yeah, she's on the Harrington's advert that's been shown. I think between Emmerdale and the Yorkshire Vet, I think. So everybody kind of seems to know her from the Harrington's advert.
Excellent.
Yeah, just a black streak goes past. Yeah.
Excellent. Good. So will I make it a minute past 6? So we'll kind of jump straight on to what we're after, really. So this evening, obviously, a sort of conversation really between myself, which is James Eade, and experienced registered veterinary nurse Rachel Bean. For those that don't know me, as I say, my name is James Eade. I'm a qualified vet. Qualified in 2001, so 19 years experience, 18 of which have been in general first opinion practice. I spent 1 year working for a drug company, which was really good and taught me lots of new skills. But ultimately, I'm a vet at heart with a real passion for client and patient care. And I think that's what's drawn me to Rachel a little bit as well. Rachel started her career at the Dogs Trust, so a rescue centre, rehoming charity, as an assistant kennel manager, I believe, back in the 90s. And then pursued her career and qualification as a veterinary nurse. Has been in practice ever since then, but recently I believe you diversified into various different roles within the veterinary nursing arena, which is quite vast. But again, you've got the same thread as me, really, one for owner and owner education, really, and patient welfare at the root of everything that you try and do.
Yeah, definitely.
First of all, Rachel, what are the things that you diversified into?
I think starting with the Dogs Trust, I mean, I was assistant manager between 94 and 96, and then I left, qualified as a veterinary nurse. So the thread has always been sort of behaviour, owner education, welfare, correct choice of dog, because obviously one of the main reasons why dogs end up in rescue is because people can't cope with them. You know, who buys a puppy to plan, well, in 2 years' time, I'm going to surrender this dog to the Dogs Trust or the local, Manchester Dogs Home or whatever. Something goes wrong somewhere. So that's my passion. So the other things that I do, other end of the scale is I'm in partnership with another lady. We've got a company called Vet on Set. So we supply vets and veterinary nurses that monitor welfare on TV shoots and TV adverts and things like that. So at Harrington's advert we did and things like that. I do, with the behaviour side, I wouldn't call myself a behaviourist, although lots of people do call me a behaviourist, but I haven't got that super duper degree. Maybe if I was 10, 15 years younger, I might have gone down that route, but just age-wise and money-wise as well, it's like £18,000 to get that degree. But I'm pretty useful. That doesn't mean that I should be discredited because I have a lot of experience and skills in that department. So yeah, behaviour stuff, particularly for rescues and street dogs, which we can talk about later. But
absolutely, yeah.
I'm an expert witness for court, so temperament test dogs that have been people, canine first aid tutor, which I'm enormously passionate about. Yeah, so actually a ton of stuff.
Absolutely. And to be fair, I've seen your Facebook posts about your first aid courses that you run, and you seem to kind of cover the whole country with those, which is obviously something that I think is really useful for owners to know what to do in those first few minutes of an emergency. Not why we're here tonight, but it's a huge string to your bow, and every credit to you for that. And I've seen some of the reviews of people that have been on your courses. They really are exceptional. So, I mean, you mentioned early on about Dogs Trust, and a lot of the reasons that dogs will end up in any rescue is because of several reasons, I guess, but poor owner choice or poor choice of dog at the beginning being one of those factors. And that's really what we're talking about tonight. Tonight was prompted by a post I saw, I think it was Thursday or Friday, about a crate of puppies that was found in the back of a van, amongst other crates carrying more innocent looking cargo, which was found over in Dublin, I believe, destined for the mainland. Obviously that's potentially an illegal importation of puppies if they're under a certain age and if they've not had the relevant vaccinations.
No vaccines, no microchips, no paperwork.
No, that's it. And I think that's a huge problem that we face. But also, you know, my sort of reason for this evening was to try and speak to those owners that are looking at possibly getting a puppy in the next few weeks, months, or, you know, whenever that may be, about the sorts of things that we as veterinary professionals, so that's you as a nurse, myself as a vet, we can assist with before they even make that choice. I feel that often we're approached once they've had the puppy, and actually we may find the problem or may find a problem at that point. But actually, if they'd have spoken to us beforehand, maybe we could have offered some basic advice that might have avoided that pitfall. Yeah. So, I mean, how's COVID affected things? First of all, what, you know, how has that affected you as your nursing career, and has it changed what you're doing and seeing?
Yeah, it has. I mean, obviously, sort of March time. It was like when March actually, the third week in March, I was due to be teaching in Beijing.
Okay.
I was assisting or going along with John Rogerson, quite a well-known behaviourist. He was supposed to be retired actually, but he just can't help himself. But he said, "Do you want to come to?" I've done some work with him in Thailand, and he said, "Do you want to come to Beijing? I've got a really good job for you. It's all paid." I went, "Oh yeah, go on then." Twisted my arm.
Twist my arm, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we booked all the flights, and he said, book an extra 3 or 4 days because we'll go to the Great Wall of China, we'll go to the Forbidden City, and I was like really excited. And then COVID kind of kicked off, and it was in Wuhan, and I was like, oh, we'll be fine. Wuhan's like a day's drive away from Beijing. We'll be fine. And then another 2 weeks, we had to cancel everything. So actually, that was very disappointing, but I'm sure we'll reschedule when the world is maybe back to normal. I don't know. Anyway, so I was then off. The first aid workshops obviously had to be cancelled, etc. But I was quite thankful for the time off. I think I had 2.5, nearly 3 months off, because I was pretty much working every hour, you know, God sends really, and the rest actually did me good, physically and mentally, it did me a lot of good actually. And then one of the practices that I locum at regularly, I maybe do a handful of days a month, they asked, Rach, can you do Mondays and Fridays for us? This was middle of July. I went, yeah, sure. Rach, can you do Monday, Tuesday, Fridays? Yeah, sure. Rach, can you do all week for the foreseeable? Oh, yeah, go on then. Yeah, because you don't know what's going to happen, do you? So yeah, I'm back in full-time practice now. So
okay, excellent. And I'm in practice as well, primarily, although not full time. But like you, I'm locuming, so I probably work in a couple of practices at a time, maybe 2 days a week at each, something like that. I know we don't live that far from each other, but our paths have never sort of crossed professionally until this week, really, and tonight. I don't know where you're working, but certainly the practice I've been in, there's been a massive increase in numbers of puppies coming through the door. Have you found that?
Yes. Without a doubt. And which I'm sure we'll come on to, probably 2/3 of those are from dodgy environments, from puppy farms.
Yes, and I think that, again, is the reason we're here tonight, is to try and give owners or potential owners the clues to look for to see if they're at a genuine breeder. And there are lots of amazing breeders out there working really, really hard to improve the welfare and the health statuses of their respective breeds.
Yes, definitely.
But sadly, there are just as many people out there who are out to make a quick shilling and kind of, as we saw with that case over in Dublin, you know, buy puppies cheap from wherever and sell them at much more money and simply make a huge profit without that much of a concern, if any, for the welfare of those puppies during the journeys and for the rest of their lives, really. It makes us wonder where all these puppies that we are seeing now have come from. And I guess the imported puppies, has there been an up-regulation in, you know, normal-ish breeding? You know, where do you think they've come from?
I think, I mean, obviously we know that Lucy's Law came into effect in April this year. Brilliant work by Mark the vet, fantastic, giving him a shout out because he's done amazing work to try and get Lucy's Law through. Yes, it went through, and it will have stopped a lot of the puppy farm environments, but there is a few loopholes, which I'm sure he's working on, but there are loopholes. So what's happening now is that puppies are being sort of separated, and rather than maybe being sold in a big environment like a kennel situation, they're then being put into private homes, which gets around that Lucy's Law thing. And people do fall for the line of, oh, where's mum? Oh, she's just gone out with my auntie. Oh, she's just at my sister's house. Oh, she's just at the vet's. People fall for that. And we don't want to blame the purchaser 100%, you know. People fall for these lines like they do when you buy a car. Oh, yes, it's had a full service. Oh, okay. You know, oh, the mum's at my sister's, so you could come and see the puppies. Oh, okay. People do buy into that because they're desperate for a puppy. So
Absolutely.
I think that's is that they're being sold in private homes. But there are loopholes with the big kennels. There's big commercial kennels. The council are licensing them because there's loopholes there. Still selling, you know, from commercial kennels. There's loopholes.
Yes, and as you were saying about people not wanting to blame the purchasers at all, because the sellers of these puppies are very well rehearsed in what they're doing. A family going to buy a puppy, it's maybe something they do every 10 or 15 years, of course, once. But the person selling the puppy might do that 4 or 5 times a day or more. So they're well rehearsed in the potential lies and stories that they're passing on. A real story I had, and I'm sure we've both got lots of these, but some years ago now, I was working as a locum in a practice in Stoke-on-Trent, and a chap came in to book an appointment for his new puppy that he was getting from the breeder. And so I sort of took the history and got the client booked in. And as I always do, I always say, just bring all the paperwork with you that you've got so we can have a look through it. Obviously, I want to know if they've had any vaccines or not. And I don't push people to have the vaccines done by the breeder's vet at all. But I just want to see what paperwork that there is that exists. And the guy mentioned, oh, she's got her passport. So his puppy, his 8-9-week-old puppy, had a pet's passport. So I didn't say anything because I didn't want to put the guy off, and I wanted to sort of know a bit more about what was going on. And when he arrived for his appointment a few days later, he dutifully brought all his paperwork, and indeed there was a pet's passport. So I said, oh, well, have a quick look at that if that's okay. And so this seller of the puppy wasn't trying to hide this. This is, you know, we're sometimes blinded by the stuff in front of us. But the first language in this passport was Hungarian. So this puppy was actually imported from Hungary, but had been sold to this chap, to my client, as a puppy that had been bred in Leeds. And I think one of the big things that I would say to people is, you know, ask to see paperwork and do critically look at it and just have a look for anything obvious. I mean, this guy was an educated guy, and yet he'd been blinded by the information that was readily available in front of him. Now, that's not to say this puppy was unhealthy. You know, I don't think it was, but equally, something's not right about that. It was too young to have entered the UK legally. And obviously, you wonder what's going on behind the scenes wherever this puppy had been bred and the journey it had encountered to get here.
It's 21 weeks, isn't it, after rabies? I think it's 21 weeks before they can travel.
So I don't know what it's going to be after January. My understanding at the moment is they need to be a minimum of 12 weeks of age for the rabies jab, and then they can travel 3 weeks later.
After, which is 21 weeks,
So you know, anything coming in 9-10 weeks of age is absolutely far too young. Another case I had when I worked down in London, and I had lots down in London actually, a young couple who were from an Eastern European country, I forget which country, and they brought their puppy back with them after a weekend going back home. So came to me for first vaccines at 8-9 weeks of age, and straight away I thought, hang on, it needs to be at least, you know, 15-18 weeks or whatever of age to come to the UK. So no matter what's happened, this is an illegal import. And again, the people just weren't aware. So here we are trying to raise awareness of what to look for, I guess.
Exactly. And we had a Jack Russell puppy in a couple of weeks back that had been docked, and it had a docking certificate. But actually, the terriers, as far as I know, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think they're on the docking. You know, they're not allowed to be docked. It's still the working gun dogs, so your spaniels and Weimaraners and things like that. Actually, the terriers are not to be docked, whatever the reason. But it had a docking certificate and been docked by a vet. So to me, that was falsified. It must have been.
Yeah, that was all UK. It was English. It wasn't another language. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Gosh, and in terms of, I mean, the case from Dublin, you weren't involved in that at all, were you? Was that just the post that you shared?
I just saw the post, and then a second. I think that was Tuesday or Wednesday, and then a second post came up on Friday. The same port, the same situation, and similar type dogs as well. So goodness, how long has that dealer been sending those puppies over to England and getting away with it?
Mm. And with the cases that I had, I was working in London for about 15 months, and I had quite a lot of suspect illegally imported dogs. And to the point that I'm quite passionate about this because there's an animal welfare perspective, long journeys in dark, damp conditions. Do they get food and water? What conditions are they bred in their home countries? There's lots of questions that we need to think about. But equally, there's a health risk to the human dog and human population. If these dogs are not protected against rabies, but coming from countries where rabies exists, there's a huge biosecurity hazard for us in the UK as well. And that has to play a huge part in how I then react to these cases. So I found down there it's not trading standards that deal with it, but I believe most other parts of the country it's trading standards that would deal with this sort of situation. But I spoke to the people at Heathrow Animal Reception Centre, so they have the contract through London City Council, I believe, and got on really well with them. And I have a bit of a passion for aviation as well. I'm a bit of a geek like that. So I tried to combine my work with my passion, and I invited myself down to the Heathrow Animal Reception Centre to meet the people that were running this department, have a chat. And also, I was working for quite a large group of practices, Goddard Veterinary Group. They've got about 50 practices all over London. So I thought as a group, we were well placed to kind of work with City of London and the Animal Reception Centre people to kind of come up with a solution. But they were telling me that one particular breed, French Bulldogs in Eastern Europe, they were sold for, say, 65 euros. And at that time, were being shipped over here or transported over here and selling for £2,000–3,000.
Massive.
It's huge. And if you've got 6 or 8 or 10 or 20 even in the back of a van, that's potentially hundreds of thousands of pounds worth of profit per month. So, and it's huge money made on the back of animal suffering. And obviously in our profession, this is what we need to protect against. That's not to say they're unhealthy dogs, but it's just what they're subjected to, isn't it? That's what gets me. It's what these dogs are subjected to.
Which can make them unhealthy mentally, can't it?
Yeah, and behavioural problems, which is, you are not a behaviourist per se, but I know you're well respected in the behaviour and training world. And it keeps you busy, and it's kind of sad that you're busy with that work because it does mean there's a suffering animal. Yeah,
definitely. Yeah.
If people are looking for a pup, then I've got my advice that I give to people. Whether you want to sort of offer some advice to people first, or if I run through what I say or whatever.
Yeah, we can kind of bounce off each other. So, I mean, I think the main thing is to try and find a puppy. First of all, it's got to be a breed that suits your lifestyle. One of the biggest reasons that dogs are rehomed at adolescent time is because a dog is unhandleable. You really have to choose a breed that's within your not capabilities, because you can actually learn about dogs. I mean, we shouldn't be saying to people, oh, you need to get a pet fish. We shouldn't discourage people from having a first dog, but the first dog should be manageable. We don't want to see people that are out at work all day with 3 kids getting a high energy dog that's difficult, like a husky or a Cane Corso or something like that. Something. Nobody jump on and judge me with the breeds I've just picked. It's just like, I'm just trying to pick random breeds that we're seeing with them that can be quite difficult. Even Labradors. People get Labradors and expect them, to see the guide dog and think, oh, I want one of those. They're not always the easiest. They're high energy. They're very intelligent. I've got a Fox Red, and I got that. I got her before I was too old to kind of deal with it. They're like a normal Labrador with a 5th gear,
Funny you should say that. I've recently, probably 2 months ago. So I'm a Labrador owner as well. If I just re-angle my screen slightly, they're probably not desperately in focus or anything, but sadly only one of those dogs is still with us. The 2 on the top picture, Millie, bless her, who's on where are we? Oh, it's the wrong way around. So this one, sadly, I lost in 2016. She was a rescue dog that came in through my first job. The one next to her, who's completely camera shy, not looking towards it at all. She came in through the practice I used to own, sadly at 7 weeks of age, to be put to sleep because of some neurological problems. I took her on, and she lived to the ripe old age of about 11 with those neurological problems that lasted forever, but she was the sweetest dog you'll ever meet. But when we lost Millie, my first dog, because of Bella's neurological issues, she needed a friend. So through Labrador Rescue Scotland, we went and got Kia, who is, that one. So we still have Kia just now. And when we lost Bella in January, we decided we wanted 2 again. So we've taken on a 9-month-old, so she's about 10.5 months now. Black Labrador. She's not made it onto the Wall of Fame yet, but that will happen one day. Through Labradors in Need, and 9 months old, and we're her 4th owner. So it goes back to what you were saying about adolescence and sort of handleability, I guess. My sort of take is, people do need to research the dog they're getting, the time it's going to need, and also outside of that, training classes that are local to them, and the sort of behaviour traits of those breeds, so that hopefully we can kind of eliminate those dogs that are in that situation of being rehomed for that reason.
And also it's recognising what's normal for puppies as well. So your play biting, the challenges going through house training, those are the reasons why puppies are giving up for normal behaviour. Well, do that. Dogs don't come programmed house trained. You have to put a lot of work in. You have to put a lot of effort. There's also the costing as well. I don't realise actually how much it costs to set up and live with a dog. It's a luxury, isn't it? It's not a piece of furniture. It's a luxury to be able to afford the upkeep for the dog. I mean, we had in practice a couple of months back, we had a dog to board over here, and nice young man that owned it and everything. And then I offered him the 4 weeks free insurance, and he was like, "No, I'm not insuring them." The following week we had a puppy in that swallowed a sock. An 11-week-old collie. It costs, how much it costs to do, remove the sock from its intestines. It doesn't mean to say because it's a pedigree that it's not going to have certain diseases, or it's going to have accidents that are going to cost lots of money.
Quick question for you: Are your dogs insured or no?
Yes, they are.
Yeah, mine too. So, and I tell people, my dogs are insured. It's not for me to tell other people what to do with their dogs. I only make recommendations and give my reasons for it. But for anybody watching this, my dogs are both insured. The insurance costs me £110 a month for my 2 dogs. So it's not a small cost in itself, but the reason pet insurance can be expensive is because obviously nowadays we're not that far behind human medicine in what we can do. MRI and CT scans are possible, pretty advanced surgery. I'm sure we've all seen Professor Fitzpatrick on his relevant TV shows, and various other TV shows also exist, and can see what is possible now, and the sort of complexities of what we can do are great.
And I think a lot of things with the pet insurance, a lot of people don't realise actually when you take a pet insurance policy out that what's also included is third-party and public liability insurance, which is up to maybe, depending on your policy, £1 to £3 million, which covers any eventuality that you may be taken to court for costs if your dog causes an accident. So if your dog, you're on the beach, this is something that happened last year, is on the beach and it chases a horse rider, and that horse rider falls off and breaks the back, is in the wheelchair for the rest of their life. Are you going to be taken to court for that? God damn you are. And where's the money going to come from? If you haven't got pet insurance to cover that, then they're going to take it from, you're going to have to surrender your house, everything comes off your pet insurance. So yes. If people desperately don't want to take a pet insurance policy out, they maybe have a bad experience, etc., you can join the Dogs Trust. If you join the Dogs Trust for £25 a year, they will give you a third-party and public liability certificate for up to 10 dogs at your address. And this is for people that are walking other people's dogs. We always say, "Oh, can you look after the dog for the weekend?" Yeah, sure. If that person, your friend, is taking your dog out and you have no pet insurance and that dog bites somebody, or you trip and let go of the lead and it runs in front of a car and causes a car accident, it's actually whoever's in control of the dog at the time is responsible for that dog's behaviour. And if it hasn't got pet insurance, then that your friend, you know, is going to be taken to court for negligence. Yeah.
So that's really useful. So that's Dogs Trust.
Yeah.
They're dogstrust.org.uk, I suspect.
On the website or call them. They'll set it up for you. £25. It's like, yeah.
Which is nothing in the scheme of things, is it, if anything was to happen? I mean, one of the things I say to potential clients, if I get to speak to them before they go and look at puppies, one of the first things, because I completely get the excitement of having a new dog, and even as a vet myself, you know, I was really excited to get my new dog. So, and it's a family event, isn't it? The kids are excited, the parents are excited, but I urge people, if they've got children, ideally don't take the kids the first time you go and look, because no matter what you find when you get there, you're never going to leave without a puppy if you've taken the children.
Yeah, there's lots of emotional things going on, isn't there? Yeah, and that's why a lot of people do take puppies from puppy farms. It's because, I had to get it away from that situation. I'm rescuing it, really. Well, you're not really.
You're paying £2,500 or whatever it is. That's, you know, I think I paid $250 for one of my rescue dogs and $350 for the other. So, you know, which I still think is quite a lot of money for a rescue, but when you look at the support you get from the rescue organisation and the fact that actually my dogs have both been healthy and not needed anything, but that's not the case with all. They may have vet bills of hundreds and thousands of pounds, mightn't they, to deal with.
I think the other thing as well, I mean, it certainly happened to me. I mean, I do an awful lot of work for rescue. I do my fair share. You know, I go abroad and help in the shelters in Asia and things like that. So when I actually got my puppy, who's 22 months now, the day that I picked her up, I took some pictures, and it's actually a family, you know, it's a friend that actually bred. She's not a breeder. She's just, you know, the dogs are working dogs. It's, you know, it's a breeder. Home beard, which is important, which we can talk about, health tested, etc. What actually completely ruined my day was that I picked her up and showed pictures of her like this, and 2 people just put hashtag shop don't adopt, adopt don't shop, whatever it is. Anyway, adopt don't shop. Yeah. And these were supposed to be friends of mine, and I was so upset.
I guess I've not experienced that, but my dog ownership history, Millie was a rescue dog. She was in a road traffic accident in Stoke-on-Trent, had various orthopedic and soft tissue injuries. Bella was rescued by way of not putting her to sleep when requested to do so, with clear medical problems, and certainly she couldn't have gone to a normal home. And then Kia, who we had from Lab Rescue Scotland, she, bless her, lovely natured dog, and circumstances there where the owner was poorly, and whilst she wasn't desperately poorly at that time, she had a chronic degenerative disease and knew that come 2 years down the line or whatever, she wouldn't be able to look after Kia. But so we drove to Scotland and got her, and she settled in brilliantly. And I did think earlier this year, if we were to get another dog, I'd like to get I'd like to research and choose and look through pedigrees and all that sort of thing, and sort of choose the dog rather than the dog choose me. But then we landed upon this youngster, and well.
And it kind of goes back to the lifestyle thing, doesn't it? You know what I do. The first aid, I'm traveling, or was traveling a lot. I've got to have quite a malleable breed that doesn't mind being dropped off at the kennels or dropped off at a relative, see you later, see you in a couple of days, or come with me and do the first aid workshops at day 5. I had to pick something, and also I wanted to, because I like my dog hobbies, so I really wanted to do a lot of scent work and man trailing with any dog that I got. So I've not, and I think this is the misconception, is if where I've taken bought Chili, I've completely spoilt a potential home for a rescue dog. No, I haven't, because my dog's not going to go into rescue, so. You know what I mean? It's not.
Absolutely.
I mean, there's going to be lots of people that disagree with me, but I think it was very disrespectful of the 2 people, the amount of work that I do and how passionate I am to put that, and it upset me. So if you're watching, it upset me.
Well, on behalf of everybody else, I I apologise. I'm sorry you had that. Ultimately, it's horses for courses. We're all free to make our own decisions as long as those decisions are researched, isn't it? That's the key to it. Research and know what we're choosing. Back to the sort of puppy situation. You know, there's this sort of great advice about make sure you see the pup with its mum, but I think it goes one step further and make sure that the dog you're told is mum is actually mum, as far as you can tell.
Yes.
You're probably better versed at this than me. What sort of behaviours would you advise looking for that would fit with it being mum, and also behaviours that would fit with it being a foster dog, a fake mum, whatever you want to call them?
Yeah, I mean, mum would make it very obvious that she's attached to those puppies. The puppies would recognise mum, and vice versa. It's just animalistic behaviour, isn't it? The mum comes in, she jumps straight to them, lets them feed or lets them fuss around her. I think if the mum isn't the mum, then there'll be that little bit of apprehension. You can also look at mammary development and things like that. I know people have gone and seen mum and they've shown me a picture and I said, well, that dog hasn't got any milk.
And also, if you've had photos and videos, I guess, during the sort of process of the puppy's initial growth, if there's any distinctive features and markings, it's definitely worth having a look for those as well, and not being blinded by what's in front of you and the cuteness of the puppy and the litter.
Yeah, and also not falling for the one where the puppies are sold early. You know, we've had puppies in. I know with Lucy's law and the other laws that have come in where they cannot be sold before the age of 8 weeks. We've certainly had puppies in that have been 6, 7, 8 weeks, and the purchaser said, well, the breeder said the puppies were annoying the mum, so they've separated them. Well, actually, that period from 6, 7 weeks up to 8 weeks or 9 weeks is really, really important. For weaning, like a mechanical weaning, you know, they say get off and what have you. So taking them away earlier, that 2 or 3 week period with the mum, she has to be able to move away from the puppies. So she's doing a very gradual disattachment from the puppies. Doing a sudden, right, mum, you're not allowed because they're biting you, because it's detrimental to her temperament as well.
But it's a really important development phase, isn't it? As you say, both physical and mental behavioural development for mum and pups as well. And I also mentioned videos. You know, it's useful to get videos, but do not accept a video as a substitute for seeing mum. You know, we both, I'm sure, had people that have met the breeder in a public car park on the motorway services halfway between, you know, their house and mine. But really, is that the way we should do it? Should we be simply transferring merchandise in a public car park and swapping bundles of cash for puppies?
A lot of these adverts, I saw one a few months back. It was a bulldog puppy, and it was up in the Shetland Islands. Yes, we need to meet halfway. I can meet you in Edinburgh. You know, they're not driving down from the Shetland Islands to Edinburgh. It's probably been bred in Glasgow, and they're coming across pretending they've been. Definitely. Yeah, you got to watch.
And I also think, you know, the breeder clients I've dealt with over the years, and I guess I've not dealt with lots of breeders by any means, but the good breeders, of which there are plenty, they love talking about their dogs, don't they? So if you're asking questions, which we should be asking about the litter and the breed and about the mum and dad's temperaments and behaviours and health, we should be asking those questions. If it seems like we're being met with a bit of sort of, oh gosh, that's a problem, you know, why are you asking so many questions? That wouldn't ring true for me either, because I love talking about my dogs, you love talking about yours, and breeders even more so. So really, there should be lots of conversation between prospective puppy owner and the breeder that they're purchasing from.
You know, paperwork as well, you know, kennel club papers and things like that. You know, there's quite a lot forged. People think just because it's got KC written on that it is kennel club, and in fact it's not. The other thing is, the paperwork's on the way. I'll forward it to you once it should arrive in 2 or 3 weeks. Actually, they should have paperwork there ready.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there's all those things.
Again, all the breeders I've had, they've got puppy packs ready, you know, with the kennel club paperwork. If they've had first vaccines, that vaccination card will be there. You know, if someone's told that the puppies had vaccines but they've not got the card, every practice I've worked in where it's a breeder that comes in with a litter of puppies, the cards are made up in advance, ready to hand over at that appointment. So again, I would question the legitimacy of that, the vaccine card's on its way. And as you say, with the kennel club paperwork as well, and, you know, anything like that.
Yeah,
The other thing where the vets may come in is, or us independently, would be microchipping. So you mentioned Lucy's Law, and shouldn't be selling puppies and kittens under 8 weeks of age. But they should also be puppies should be microchipped by 8 weeks of age as well.
And I would say probably 60-70% of puppies are not microchipped when they come for their vaccines.
And that's really suspicious in itself, isn't it? If a puppy is not microchipped, then that would raise big questions for me. It's illegal now. The breeder must be the first listed owner on that microchip documentation. So if the breeder is not that first listed person, then something about that whole transaction is not compliant with the law, for starters, let alone the morals and ethics of sort of pet ownership, really. I guess the big one for me that I say to owners is be prepared to walk away. If you don't like the conditions that these puppies are in, as you said earlier, you're not rescuing a dog by handing over £2,000 to buy it. £2,000 is exactly what they want, and by giving the dealers the £2,000, it doesn't matter how we feel about that emotional withdrawal of that puppy from that situation. They've got exactly what they wanted, and they can go off and buy another 100 puppies with that £2,000.
Exactly.
And that is what it comes down to. That one rescued puppy that isn't really rescued is actually potentially subjecting another 50 to 100 puppies to the same situation.
Exactly. And I think as veterinary professionals as well, we have a duty of care to educate owners when they come in with these puppies. It's how you do it is critical. We should not be, blaming these owners because, why have you bought? You shouldn't do that. It's all about education, isn't it? So it's gentle. Look at the card and say, "Oh, did you see Mum?" And then that triggers a conversation. Oh no. Oh, which kennels did it come from? So kennels. And then you just give them a little bit of a background, and what it does, the penny just drops. Then they will go and do the research, and then they'll realise that they've bought a puppy from a puppy farm, of which there are many all over the UK, and especially in the Northwest. I'm not going to name them, but everybody knows who they are. All right. It doesn't take much investigation to see who they are. Then they'll do their own investigations and realise what they've done, and hopefully then they will go and tell their family, their friends, "Oh, we've made a mistake. Don't you make them the same mistake." For vets and vet nurses to have these puppies in and realise that they're from a puppy farm and not say anything, I just can't believe that that's happening. They really should be educating, but in a gentle way, not a blaming way, not why have you done this?
No, I completely agree. And as you said earlier, as we were saying, the people doing this, the people that are selling these puppies, they're well rehearsed in the lines they use. And our families, our clients that are falling for it, sadly, it's a once in a decade decision. So, and absolutely, I agree with you about taking the gently approach of we know that it's a sad situation. Hopefully the puppy is not unhealthy because of what it's been through, but it's got a higher chance of having an issue potentially. But also just working with those owners and as you say, making sure that their friends and family are aware that, okay, we fell for it, please don't you do the same thing.
And when puppies come in and the buy puppy, this is a Cocker Spaniel, you look at it and you think, we had one a few weeks back where it was quite a notorious sort of Pomsky breeder in Wales, a dealer, and the Pomsky, Pomeranian cross Husky, came in for its vaccines, and it was actually the same size as a Husky puppy, and they'd paid like £3,000 for this puppy, and I gently explained, but you will get these owners that actually don't care as well. I answered the phone on reception and wanted to book the puppy in for. Said, "Oh yeah, puppy. I went through all the details. Where did you get your puppy? So kennels." And I said, "All right. Did you see Mum?" "Oh yes, Mum and Dad were there." And I knew she was fibbing because I know this for a fact that this kennels does not have the parents there. So she was covering up. Yeah. So sometimes the purchaser also doesn't care, and we've got to do it in a way and educate people that they do care. So they won't do it again.
Absolutely. How do you feel about, and I have mixed thoughts, as in largely I fall on one side of the fence, but people may be asked to pay in cash for the puppy.
Yeah, because then there's no paper trail.
Yeah, absolutely. So I had a case relatively recently. One of the valuable pedigree breeds had been sold to the client for several £1,000s, more than £5,000. That money had changed hands as cash, and yet there was a breeding clause on the contract of sale, not the typical breeding clause that we're used to of times gone by from the good breeders who want to make sure that their lineage is kind of protected and only ever enhanced, but a breeding clause that said that this female dog must have 2 litters of puppies, which then belong to the original breeder. Shocking, isn't it?
Pyramid selling, isn't it?
Well, it's exactly that. And I sort of said to the lady, just run that by me again. So she told me. And I said, no, I'm assuming you paid by bank transfer, knowing that it won't be. And no, this £7,000 it was, had changed hands as cash. It was a big litter of puppies. And I said, so who's going to pay for the cesarean that your breed of dog that often needs cesareans is going to need? Or the breeder's having her back for the last 2 weeks of pregnancy and until the puppies are 6 weeks. So she's paying for that, or he, I don't really know who it was. And whose puppies are they? Oh, they belong to the breeder. So you've paid cash, all these other people are going to pay cash, but it's actually your dog that's had the puppies. So if somebody reports you to HMRC, there's a huge, fraudulent income tax liability there that actually, in theory, you could be pursued for because it's your dog that will have had these puppies. So it's just, really being careful about the contracts that people are signing and just double checking. Ultimately, my view is if I've paid for a puppy or a rescue dog, once that transaction's happened, any decisions moving forwards are mine and mine and my partner's as our property, as our dog at that point. I think for obviously, if there's a breeding restriction from the good breeders who often put those on for very legitimate reasons, then that's to be respected. But I just find it ridiculous that someone has to make their dog have 2 litters of puppies.
Yeah,
it's
crazy. Yeah.
Have you had that sort of situation before yourself?
I've not seen that one. Yeah,
I've had it once. I've had it once, and I was just dumbfounded.
Yeah, and I think I'm not. I mentioned it to you earlier. I'm not anti-breeder. I think if it's done correctly and all the health tests are done and the puppies are raised in a home environment with family, with kids around, then that's fine because there's never going to be a time where people don't want puppies. And why should people feel bad about buying a puppy? Everybody should have that. That's wanting a dog should experience that. Of getting a puppy. Why
it's a huge family experience, isn't it? It's a huge family experience.
I think there's so much pressure now not to breed, even when you go in the vet. So, you need to get in for neutering. So all the really good temperament dogs over the last 20 or 30 years, the mutts, the crossbreeds, all the good temperaments, they're all being neutered, so they're not being bred from. So there's no family unit dogs anymore. So if somebody wants to go and get a dog that's raised in a family, it's very, very difficult. So then they're forced, then to go to the dealers or the puppy farms or the commercial kennels because Mr. Jones down the road is not breeding his crossbreed, his mongrel, because the vets neutered it.
And I think with all the good breeders, of which we've said there are lots of good breeders out there to improve the health status of their respective breed, they'll often have waiting lists for puppies, won't they? That not always, but quite often, depends on the breed. You mentioned Cane Corsos earlier. I'm sure there's waiting lists for those in the respective homes. Labradors probably less so because obviously they're a very, very popular breed, so there will be lots of Labradors being bred in the good situations. But obviously if you're after a rare, an uncommon breed and you can get your hands on one like that and some of these other things that we've been talking about exist, then obviously it should just raise question marks as to whether that's an appropriate to
It's a fashion thing as well, isn't it? You know, if a certain dog is in a certain film or a certain advert, then there's a bit of a flurry about that breed. I think there's a celebrity this last couple of weeks has bought a Shiba Inu puppy. You know, why shouldn't he? If he wanted Shiba Inu, why shouldn't he? It's fine as long as he's got it from a reputable breeder. But yeah, then the fashion is that, oh, so-and-so's bought a Shiba Inu, I'll go and buy one. But maybe that person that thinks, you know, it might not be a suitable breed for you know, the primitive breed. They're a bit aloof, you know, they're nice, I like them, but I wouldn't have one. But just so-and-so's bought one doesn't mean that we should go and buy one.
And so-and-so who's bought one probably has, you know, professional dog walker and dog trainer on hand 24/7 for the first 6 months of that dog's life. Does Joe Public, do you and I have access to that? We don't, do we? So again, the situation is very different. What are your thoughts on, and have you had problems with, and it's a loaded question because I have, but when to collect the puppy? I mean, the classic case I had was a puppy was clearly a puppy dealer puppy, and was the last in the litter. That's another common phrase, I think, to sort of force a quick decision. But could also only be collected at 8 o'clock at night, which actually turned out to be because it was an unhealthy puppy and the vets were all closed. So you're kind of forcing that new owner, or as I'm going to call them, the victim in this scam, to choose not seeking veterinary help until tomorrow morning, or paying the understandably increased out of hours charges to seek emergency help overnight. Would you recommend only collecting puppies during daylight hours where at all possible?
No doubt, yeah. And if it's that single puppy, that's the alarm bells there, isn't it? You know, where's the rest of the litter? They've already been sold. Okay, who are they sold to? Can you give me pictures, updated pictures of the puppies that have already been sold? Where's mum? Blah, blah. Yeah, it's all the same questions, isn't it?
It is. It is all the same questions, but with a different context to them, as you know, as to the sort of answers and the information we're looking for, really. So, I mean, that's really the basis of what I suggest. You know, don't take the kids when you first go to look, because it'll be really difficult to walk away. But I also think you need to reserve the right to walk away. A good breeder will not mind you. I mean, they probably don't want a decision on day one. A good breeder is going to want you to go 2-3 times to see them from an early age. It might be different at the moment with COVID and the social distancing and so on, but equally, as I said earlier, you know, breeders love to talk about their dogs, which is great. So if you're being met with a little bit of resistance to your, you know, in terms of getting answers to your questions, I think that would raise alarm bells. Never meet in a public place to swap cash for puppy. Check the paperwork, ask any questions, you know, do look at the paperwork and just check it's not Hungarian.
Yeah, and then don't be afraid to ask a professional, you know, to go along with you. I mean, I've been not as many times as I would like, go along with purchasers, because I can spot them straight away, and I ask the right questions. I'm not introduced as a veterinary nurse when I go and visit. I'm introduced as, this is my sister, or people don't know, and I ask questions, and I can tell straight away, you know, if it's a dealer or something's dodgy.
So I've offered that as well as a service to people, and I've been twice. Once as a rehoming of a directly from a family that advertised they needed to rehome the dog for, you know, whatever reason, and once with good clients of mine who I've known for years, and they're probably watching this actually, just to make sure that the litter of puppies was exactly, you know, that, a litter of puppies in the home environment, which they were. And that little puppy now, bless him, I think he's 8 or 9 years of age, and is recovering from a recent little operation as well. But that's the service I offer. You know, if it's somewhere local, if it's within half an hour of home, then I'll go free of charge with people, because I'm so passionate about making the right choice and spotting these problems, and importantly, walking away if things are not right. If it's further afield, I'll still go, but I'll probably want my petrol money covered.
And I think just a little touch on imported puppies as well. You know, there's a bit of a thing at the moment. We're getting more and more sort of Romanian rescues and that kind of thing, and they're coming over as puppies. You've got to think really carefully about that as well. I'm not anti it, but it's got to be done correctly, you know, with rescues, because the temperaments, they can be often shy, nervous, you know, they might be semi-feral. You've got to be really careful where you get a dog from abroad. Which rescue have they got for backup? Support backup. They're not easy.
No, the key there is what we've been advocating throughout this is see the puppy, see the litter, see them, ask questions, talk about it. If you're getting a dog that is it could be from Shetland, it could be from Poland, wherever it is, you're not going to see that puppy beforehand, so you can't make an informed decision in the same way that you can if it's a dog that's more local to home, I guess. So it's as you say, it's not that we're anti or pro foreign rescue. It's just that actually there's a natural limitation in what you can expect to know about that dog before you get it, isn't there?
Yeah.
And obviously, once a dog from Romania is here,
yes,
kind of stuck here.
Yeah, you've got a massive responsibility for that dog. I know people's circumstances change, but you can't be putting it into the UK rescue system. We've got enough rescue system. It's got to be, I'm going to get this dog and it stays with me forever,
Yeah. I think in the last few minutes, what time are we? 10 minutes left. I kind of wanted to touch on, other than us, Rachel Bean, registered veterinary nurse, myself, James Eade, veterinary surgeon, what other resources there are for people. I mean, you've mentioned Dogs Trust, we've mentioned the Kennel Club. I think Kennel Club's a really good resource because that does tell people when you go through the health and testing categories on their website, the sorts of tests that breeders of specific breeds, and every single breed is listed, there's an A to Z list, and you can have a look into exactly the tests that should be being done and the tests that would be recommended to be done. And I think it's really useful to have that information and ask the breeder.
Yeah, and college surgeon, BVA, do all the health testing, find out which health tests are needed, Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So, I mean, I made a list. There's obviously your vet is a good, your vet and vet nurse and so on. The veterinary practice is a good resource. The Kennel Club, if you're after a particular breed, then they probably have their own rescue organisation. I mean, I mentioned Labradors in Need and Labrador Rescue Scotland. They'll have lots more information. It may be that you don't want a rescue dog, which is fine, but they can give you lots of information about things to look for. The Blue Cross, the PDSA, Dogs Trust, all those websites. But again, don't overlook the breeders. They're very, very knowledgeable about their specific breeds. And absolutely that knowledge is to be respected by us and by owners alike. But if you contact a breeder, in inverted commas, and they don't seem to know much about the breed, again, massive alarm bells.
Yeah, or they spell it wrong in their description.
Yeah, absolutely. And also a little trick to, if you see an advert for puppies, Google the phone number, because you may find that actually last month they had 4 other adverts in. And if you've got a name or an address, Google the address as well, because they may have burner phones, they may have 6 mobile phones, and the adverts are spread across all 6 phones. So Google the address, Google the name, Google the phone number. And again, if you spot a pattern of, lots of litters of puppies and lots of adverts on lots of different sites, it doesn't mean it's wrong, but it would just raise alarm bells, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that's it. And I find it very frustrating, although I don't portray that to the client. I'll come back in and I'll say, oh, it's a puppy found dog. I'll share that frustration to my colleagues, but I will not share that frustration to the client or try and educate. But there is so much information out there that sometimes I still don't understand why people are still falling for these puppy farm puppies. With all that information out there.
Maybe there's too much information, and maybe things like this, if we did things like this more often and our colleagues, did similar things, that would be really useful. I'm a big fan of client evenings, which I've moved on to Zoom and this sort of thing recently. I mean, are there any sort of closing points from yourself, Rachel?
No, really. It's just thank you for asking me, and I think both our careers are kind of very similar in that passion of trying to educate owners, and that's it really, isn't it? It's just education.
Absolutely, perfect. One thing you mentioned right at the start with your first aid courses, is that something you're still offering at the moment, or is it on hold with COVID?
at the moment, only because with me being in sort of Oldham in the Manchester area, we are on red really, and working frontline at the vets. It's all you've got to be super careful. I've got to be super careful with my social bubbles because if there's already 2 or 3 branches had to shut for 2 weeks because a staff member was tested positive. So with that, I've got to be really careful with my work colleagues. So yeah, I mean, I've not taught any first aid since March, but I've taught one, I think, in Preston, where there was that kind of gap, kind of about 6 weeks back. So I did it, but yeah, everything from there has been postponed. I am writing one online. I've got a free cut paws and pad injuries one, which is free actually, because with my courses I use real footage and real situations.
And I know your dogs are well versed in lying still for bandages and.
Yeah, but when we do get fired up again, I mean, I'll put the links for my Rachel Bean school. It's like a teachable platform. But the first aid course is nearly done. It's just that I went back into practice, and it's nearly there. I've just got a handful of videos to put on it, and then but it's not a qualification one. It's just for interest, really. There will be a cost on that. I'm going to put it out at 25 quid, but it's got so many like real footage on there. Nothing gory or anything, but just like, this is what a dog looks like when it's struggling for breath. This is what a dog looks like when it's, loads of stuff. So it's not a qualification, but my course actually has been accepted through the iPet network as an off-call level 3 qualification now, which is massive news. So we'll be rolling that out as soon as we can. Yeah.
Well, congratulations on that.
Yeah.
So what's your social media page then for your courses?
Yeah, you can always have me on just Rachel Bean, which is my Facebook page, in brackets, qualified veterinary nurse. And then my Facebook page is Canine First Aid Workshops, Rachel Bean, RVN. So everything goes on there, or one Brilliant. Of those.
Okay. And similarly, just my own little plug as well, shameless plug. So the stuff I do, I tend to put out through pet care events on Facebook. And then now that I'm new to this, I can use this again in future, but I have been doing those on Zoom. So I've done stuff on vaccinations, on parasite control. This time of year, I guess I ought to write something on osteoarthritis because that's sort of more prevalent through the colder winter months.
Yeah.
Summer months would be skin and ear disease, I guess. So yeah, I think keep up the good work. You're known for being amazing at what you do. So keep up the good work, and thank you so much for joining me this evening. And I hope that everyone who's watching both live and potentially in the future has gained something. If you've got any questions to anybody who is watching, please feel free to message myself or Rachel. And if we can help, we will.
Yeah, definitely. We'll share this far and wide, so questions can be asked afterwards, definitely.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, so all that remains is to say thank you very much, Rachel, and enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you, and you.
Take care.